guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to Friday, as another week of gaming has passed. If it's your first time watching, I make weekly gaming news videos Monday to Friday, covering everything happening in the gaming world. So if you like what you see, or you've been watching for a while and aren't subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure to check out my Spotify. Link is in the description. But we're going to start off here with some gaming journalism news, if you want to call Kotaku a journalistic website. But as we know, over the last number of weeks, there's been a huge controversy surrounding the video game industry in regards to Sweet Baby Inc. And one of the first major publications, or you could say mainstream publications in gaming, was Kotaku, who came out and actually wrote a story about this. Now, the story itself omitted essentially the main facts of what was actually happening, why the entire Sweet Baby Inc. thing occurred. Essentially was just a defense fluff piece for Sweet Baby Inc. Basically trying to get everybody to, I guess, turn on the gamers and turn on people who were against having a Steam curator group canceled and a Steam page canceled because they were listing games that were worked on by Sweet Baby Inc. And there was a lot of stuff that happened after that article came out. You saw journalists. It was basically journalists versus everybody else. They all went to the defense force of Sweet Baby Inc. and Kotaku, and then they started blocking a bunch of people. It was just a wild time for a couple of days there on social media. And Kotaku has been known for a while now to, like, nobody really reads it. Let's be honest here. It's been a dying gaming website for a long time. They've basically just turned into a political website where they put their political spin on everything. And it used to be where people just wanted to learn about gaming news, what was going on within the industry, learn about if the game was good or not. And Kotaku has completely gone away from that, which I think has led to its overall demise over the last number of years. And now we are at a point that really proves that has been the case. I feel like the Sweet Baby Inc. was their last ditch effort to try to gain some relevancy, and that absolutely did not happen, as a major thing happened here where the Kotaku editor-in-chief resigns after criticizing management. Jen Glennon says she believes the publication's new strategy is fundamentally misguided. And what their new strategy is basically they're going to be creating guides for games. And if you think about that realistically, what I'm thinking is happening here at Kotaku is they're looking at their numbers and they're looking at their money they're making, and they're saying our grifting for politics isn't working. Nobody's reading our garbage anymore. So let's just put guides out to try to get into the Google algorithm, and it'll be a lot cheaper to do because as of right now, it just, their current direction is not working. But here's what they say. They say Glennon started as her role as Kotaku editor-in-chief on October 10th, reporting to management at the site's owner, Geo Media. However, she today announced her resignation on X, saying, "Some personal news, I've resigned from Kotaku, and Jim Spanfeller is a herb," whatever that means. She says the latter comment is a reference to a long-running insult aimed at Geo Media CEO Jim Spanfeller, as detailed in a Slate article from 2019. I don't know about all that stuff, so not really sure what she's talking about. But she says here it says here, more information on Glennon's departure was reported by Aftermath, which itself consists mostly of former Kotaku staff. I mean, I don't know who would want to read that. Aftermath received a copy of Glennon's resignation letter, in which she told Spanfeller and Deputy Editorial Director Leah Goldman that she disagreed with the decision to focus the site's priorities on guides instead of news, saying after careful consideration, again, she says she's leaving, she's resigning, and says, "I firmly believe that the decision to invert Kotaku's editorial strategy to deprioritize news in favor of guides is fundamentally misguided given the current infrastructure of the site." And this is the main issue that why nobody reads Kotaku, is because they don't report news. They just only do, like she says here, editorials on news and injecting their personal opinions into everything, where people visiting back in the day would have just really wanted to know what was going on within the gaming industry. And for it's kind of what's happened to a lot of these bigger publications, where they just inject a lot of this personal views and opinions on stuff that people don't really care about. They want to know what the news is. They want to know if a game is good or if a game is bad, and they don't want any political bias, or even, as we've been talked about over the last couple of years, bias towards a certain platform and being injected into what they are actually reporting. She says here the decision is directly contradicted by months of traffic data and shows an astonishing disregard for the livelihoods of the remaining writers and editors who work here. And I mean, maybe they've had some good traffic over the last couple of months, but a couple of good months of traffic isn't going to turn around a dying website. It says Aftermath also reports that Kotaku's remaining staff is now expected to write 50 guides a week for the site, and that its front page section previously dedicated to breaking and major news stories is now dedicated to tips and guides. So they're obviously looking at the strategy, the numbers, and they're thinking it's not sustainable anymore. So they're just going to try to get into the algorithm of Google. So when people are looking up games, potentially their guides will show up so that they visit Kotaku to see how to get past certain areas in games rather than putting out editorials that nobody reads. So as you can tell, I don't care. Most people don't care. I think most people are not sad about this news. Most people are thinking just good riddance to Kotaku. Of course, people's livelihoods are on the line, but if you decide to go work for Kotaku, nobody truly cares. It kind of reminds me of G4. What happened at G4? The same thing. I mean, they attacked their fans. They attacked gamers. So shortly after G4 died, and then it was just all craziness, always trying to make things look bad on the people that play the games and purchase the games and visit the website. These types of things where all the traffic comes from the actual gamers themselves that play the games and just want to be invested in their hobby. When you attack the people that support you, it doesn't end up being good. So we'll see what happens when going forward with Kotaku. Maybe it actually turns into a good guide site and they somehow turn it all around and their name comes back to a prominency in gaming, but it probably won't be the actual case. Okay, let's jump over here to a story that is making the rounds. It's a very interesting story for a couple of reasons. This is a game here called Enotria, The Last Song, and it's launching on August 21st. And this was a game that was, I believe, in the ID at Xbox program, or at least shown off on the ID at Xbox YouTube channel. It is a Souls-like game from a small Italian studio of about 60 people. They go over the game. They have a big press release here talking about the game, the size of the studio, saying that other studios that have made games similar to what they have over like 700 individuals. They are creating this game in Unreal Engine. They transitioned from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5. It's about 40 hours of gameplay in this, and they say there are 3 main regions, more than 100 different enemies, supported by a robust RPG system, and it's basically for people who like Souls-like games. They say here, has aspects beloved by Souls-like players. Now, that's the game itself. You can go and take a look at the trailer. Honestly, I looked at it. It didn't look that great to me. I never had heard about this game until this story hit yesterday. But the reason why this is a story is because it was supposed to be releasing on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. They say here, regarding the release on Xbox, we have decided, in the interest of ensuring a superior experience for PC and PlayStation 5 players, to reassess the possibility of an Xbox release post-launch. So they are not releasing it on Xbox now. They are only releasing it on PC and the PlayStation 5. And again, this creates a lot of discussion about why would they not be releasing it on Xbox? What would be the reason of taking it off of that platform going forward? It brings up the discussion of Xbox putting their games on PlayStation and them diminishing the value in people's eyes for the Xbox console, and this being a direct result of that. Now, you can argue that, and we will not actually truly know why they're not releasing it on Xbox anymore, but maybe one of the major reasons is they couldn't get it optimized properly for the Xbox Series S. That could be it as well. We'll see when this game does come out what it's all about, because at this point, if they're deciding it not to release it on the Xbox consoles and they're saying it's to ensure the best experience possible, I think realistically a game like Enotria, The Last Song, I feel like the most important release for them is on PC. I don't know how big of a game this is and how many people know about it. I know for myself, when I was reading through a lot of comments, this is the first time people actually heard about this game. It most likely isn't going to be a massive seller, but when it does come out, if it isn't high quality and if it doesn't sell well, doing something like this is a lot worse for this developer in the long run and a lot worse for this game in the long run, because people are going to know that they were essentially BSing everybody by saying that they took it off of the Xbox platform in order to ensure a better experience for the other platforms. The main reason if they would potentially also do this is to save costs, save money, knowing that the sales for the game probably isn't going to be that high across the board, and why have to try to optimize it for 2 other boxes rather than just release it essentially on PC and PlayStation and try to make as many sales from there. But we will see how this game does turn out. I'm not hoping that it does bad or anything, but it will be a very interesting one to follow in August when it does release, to see if it truly is a very great experience because they decided not to release it on the Xbox platform. And if it is the Xbox Series S that is holding this thing back, we kind of saw that with Baldur's Gate. This is something that maybe Xbox does need to look into, where there doesn't need to be the exact parity between the versions on the S and the X going forward for certain games that do come out, especially if more higher powered games are going to have issues like this. We're seeing lots of games release on the Series S. Like, I mean, we just got like Dragon's Dogma 2 that's released on the Xbox Series S, so they had no issue there, but obviously a much bigger team with a lot more funding. But for these smaller studios, if they're trying to make something grand and big and they're having trouble with the optimization on the lower powered device, maybe this is something that Xbox looks into to make sure games don't skip it. Now, this is, again, a one game that's missing it. This isn't a massive problem across the board. But of course, like I've said, we'll wait and see what happens when this game does release on August 21st. Next up here, one of the best announcements I found at the Game Awards last year was SEGA going back into their back catalog and bringing back games, remaking a bunch of games. And from the trailers they showed, for example, the Crazy Taxi one looked really good. Looked like it was a huge upgrade. Obviously, being put out on the current generation of devices, it is going to look great, but it looked really good in my opinion. And one of the reasons we now may know why it's going to look great is because they are using Unreal Engine 5. This says here, a reputable leaker has claimed that both Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi are both Unreal Engine 5 remakes. You can see here on Twitter. This leaker here, who has accurately reported stuff on Sega related games in the past, response to somebody saying, are the revivals like JSR and Crazy Taxi part of Sega's super game lineup? And the response is yes, and there are Unreal Engine remakes too. So that's pretty exciting. I feel like they are going to look very good. The other thing that was pretty cool is that it said here that it was also said that the new Streets of Rage game is in development by a Canadian game studio and will have a mobile title release in the future too. So they are bringing out these older titles. Streets of Rage, we've already seen them revitalize it with Streets of Rage 4, which was a phenomenal game. But they're bringing out another one, and they're also going to be putting it out on mobile, which would make sense because I feel like now, especially with the power of some of these phones, even like the last Streets of Rage game that came out potentially could have gotten some sort of mobile release to reach more players. And I mean, that's where all these companies are going. They need to expand out the amount of people they can reach to play their games. But I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to see all of these older games come back. All right, next up here, let's talk about the PlayStation 5 UI. They're getting a new overhaul to the UI, which was shown off here by the YouTuber Mystic. Now, this UI is not available right now for all PlayStation 5 players. It's just, I think, in beta mode, so a few select amount of people are getting it, but I'm assuming it's going to be rolling out relatively soon. They've done some pretty nice changes overall to the user interface itself. Go check out his video if you do want to see the whole breakdown of it. But it does say here, this new UI appears to have a number of new features. It includes the ability to change the background image as well as the Explore page, now showing things like trophies, console storage, and controller and headset battery life. There's also a way to focus the type of content you see on the Explore page. So there's, I believe, different presets and layouts you can have on the Explore page to kind of match what you want to see when you do log in. It says you won't be able to move the new widgets around at your discretion. That's kind of something that would be cool if you could fully customize it, but apparently you can't. And it says here, Mystic mentions that as of now, this update appears to be in beta and is only available to those in the United States, with most likely an announcement will be coming soon. So a new UI overall here coming to the PlayStation 5 with a bunch of new features that you're going to be able to try out, and just kind of a nice refresh to the same UI that's pretty much been there since the launch of the PlayStation 5. All right, let's jump over here. Let's talk Baldur's Gate 3 and the director commenting on what has been causing the layoffs. As we know, Larian, an independent studio, and they released one of the most successful games in Baldur's Gate 3. And since that, since the beginning of this year at least, we've just seen nonstop layoffs, and even last year, but this year has been crazy over the first few months. And Sven Vic comments on this as to what he thinks is leading to all these layoffs, basically saying that it's the greed from the publishers. Here's what he says. I've been fighting with publishers my entire life, and I keep on seeing the same mistakes over and over and over, and it's always the quarterly profits. The only thing that matters is the numbers, and that's not surprising. I mean, we see some of these financial reports and just the craziness in what happens after the financial reports and new strategies. I mean, I think just recently with the whole PlayStation side of things, when they had their recent financial reports, and then we started hearing about the closure of studios, games as a service games getting canceled, and the major pivots that they are making, it all comes down to the numbers, and it all comes down to satisfying the shareholders. He continues here and says, and then you fire everybody, and then next year you're going to say, shit, I'm out of developers, and you're going to start hiring people again, and then you do acquisitions, and then you put them in the same loop again, and it's just been broken and broken and broken. And he was addressing publishers directly. Vink told them that the situation didn't have to be like this, and that they don't have to follow the firing and hiring loop he describes. He says you don't have to. You can just make reserves, slow down a little bit, slow down on the greed, be resilient. He says take care of the people. Don't lose the institutional knowledge that's been built up in all of those people that you lose every single time, so that you have to go through the same cycle over and over and over, right? Because it really pisses me off. And I mean, we saw that in the last year and a half, basically, with all of these layoffs. One of the things that I think has really made these layoffs far bigger than, I guess, normal, and this is just kind of my speculation, is that over the pandemic, a lot of these companies just way overhired because they were very, very greedy. They wanted to cash in on everybody staying at home and buying and playing all of these video games. And they went out and overhired to try to make as much money off that as possible, knowing that when the pandemic did end, they were going to have to do major slashes. And now we're seeing those effects happen. And it's eventually going to level out. The industry is not going to be on this laying off and closures and IP cancel streak forever. A lot of people are thinking this was a huge video game crash. I don't believe that. I think this is just kind of the industry shrinking back to where it was pre-pandemic. But it's unfortunate when you see that happen, because people get hired, they get excited, thinking that this is going to be a place where they'll have a career, and then because of the greed of the hiring, they are now out there looking for a job. But that was a pretty nice speech there from Sven Vic from Larian. And I mean, hopefully this is something that does change in the future. I think at this point, we have so many games. There's such an oversaturation in the market of games to play that these publishers could definitely slow down. They could spend less money in developing these huge, massive games, go back to maybe some more AA games, and they will be very successful. You look at some of the most successful games we've seen recently in games like Palworld, from a small studio, spent $6.7 million to make. And there is no way that a AAA developer out there isn't looking at a game like Palworld and how successful they have been, and thinking that they could do similar things like that. It doesn't always have to be the biggest, largest game in the world. And in fact, another example of this is Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2, a PlayStation and PC release, just an absolute success story. And we're seeing it continue here. It says Helldivers 2 is USA's best-selling game of the year so far, with nearly 60% of sales on PC. As shared on X by Matt Piscatella by Circana, formerly of NPD, the co-op shooter took the top spot in the best-selling premium games, best-selling PlayStation games, and most played on Steam charts for the month. So Helldivers 2 is still doing phenomenal. It beat out games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's ahead right now of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, beat out Skull and Bones. You keep going down here to some of the major games, beat out Tekken 8, and it's just a big success story. And it's a great sign for a couple of things. I mean, I think from the PlayStation side of things, they're looking at this and they're thinking, yeah, we got to be releasing our games day one on PC, because look how many sales we can get right off of the bat. Look how this game could be at the top of the charts for a long time. And it's another success story of a smaller game coming out here and being the top seller. So I think we are going to start seeing that shift, because the cost to develop these major AAA games, I mean, we saw the numbers from Insomniac with Spider-Man, it's just unsustainable, especially if they are going to be a game that would be a console exclusive or something like that. So cool to see Helldivers 2 still at the top of the charts. And finally, let's talk about Shinji Mikami. As we know, he was at Tango Gameworks previously, and he retired. And I thought that was a major loss for Tango, major loss for Xbox, as he's a brilliant mind in the gaming industry. And now it looks like he is back. We finally have figured out what he would be doing next. It says here that Shinji Mikami has established KAMU Inc. after leaving Tango Gameworks, according to the Shadows of the Damned Hella Remastered website. So it says here, Shinji Mikami, the director and producer of the Resident Evil and the Evil Within series and more, Mikami has created numerous blockbuster hit titles. 1996 saw the release of Resident Evil, on which he acted as director. He greatly contributed to the popularization of the survival horror genre and has had a major impact on the video game industry ever since. In 2010, Mikami founded Tango, renamed to Tango Gameworks in October of that same year after becoming a part of ZeniMax Media, and then after which he directed and released The Evil Within. He also acted as executive producer on Ghostwire Tokyo and Hi-Fi Rush. After leaving Tango, he established KAMU Inc. So we don't know what's coming out of KAMU Inc. Maybe this is just something that he has created, preparing for whenever he wants to start making and developing a game. But this is exciting because Shinji Mikami, again, a brilliant mind in the gaming industry, and I didn't think he was done. I thought he was just moving on to try to start something new, and it looks like that is the case. And I hope we do hear more about what he is going to be creating, what he's up to here at KAMU Inc. But I will end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.